Hey everyone, we are here at the lovely place with Sue Ann Caesar, one of the law champions, been studying law for over 2 decades, 3 decades. And we're grateful she's going to tell us about the Mendota case, which is one of your favorites.
It is.
Yes, this is a Freedom Law Study Group, which we're learning from people like you and some of the other people who we've mentioned, and taking what we can and applying it and seeing what works and seeing what worked for you. So if you want to share with the audience what is the Mendota case and why it's important and impactful for you and your favorite, and why you enjoy talking about it, and you know, maybe some key items that some of the students back at home can learn from the case as you go throughout the explanation.
Okay. Well, you notice I have a screen back here that's fairly large, okay? And in it is, on the screen is the one with the Mendota case. The Mendota case happened in, and I think it was, and I'll bring it up, November 2nd of 1996, okay? Now, this particular one is the last letter that I did. The Mendota case was a gentleman had a house, his own house, in Mendota, and he was re-roofing his house. And this was probably the first information that I actually got through one of my law researchers, and I utilized what he gave me and things he showed me, because when I would he would go into a case, he would determine which one was a good case, then he would share it with me, then I would go through it and make sure it had in it exactly what I was looking for, and then it would prompt me to begin to help other people. I've been doing law research since 1994, and I had classes from 1996 until 2000, in which I had an accident. But this particular case was really significant for me because I was able to utilize what I had learned and put it in this case. And this is definitely the very first case that I was very successful in. So he was reroofing his house. The building inspector came around and said, "You have to have a permit." Well, I read several cases that said the only reason you have to have a permit is if you are engaged in an activity to which the legislature can rule, meaning they can prohibit and regulate. Now, the legislature can regulate you. So how would we talk about that? Well, my forte is actually in traffic. And so if they have a stop sign or a stop light, is it prudent for you, if there's a lot of traffic going on especially, for you to just run into the intersection without any regulations for you at all? Well, that would not be a very smart thing to do. You don't want to run into an intersection in which there's lots of cars, because guess what? You're going to either get hit or you're going to hit somebody. And one of the major laws for the people is what's called a tort. And tort is if you injure or damage a person or his property. That's a law. That's actually a law. Codes are not law, but that's another story. Anyway, so this gentleman called me. Well, actually, his friend called me. And I said, send the building inspector a letter asking for to whom does this actually apply. Well, the building inspector took it to the city attorney. Now, the city attorney was not in Mendota. They were in Fresno. And so they wrote a 2-page letter, and they stated that if, and I'm wondering if it has it in, oh, that was cute. No, I don't think it's in this one, but my files are almost everywhere because as a result of my accident, I had a lot of years of recovery. But in it, they basically said, if this applies to you, then you have to follow this code. So I wrote to, anyway, they sent that letter. So I wrote back to them and I said, well, if it says if I am one subject to this code, that I have to follow all these rules. And they wrote back and said, a little 1-page thing, and he says, well, if you have questions, you can hire an attorney, and they will take care of it for you. In the meantime, the city of Mendota is going to follow the first letter. So I went, oh, really? So on November 2nd of 1996, and of course I didn't put in the city attorney or who it went to, because I figured that's privacy, okay? It says, RE, my private property for family use at, and then I gave the address. Dear City Attorney, apparently by your response, I am correct. I assumed I was correct because he couldn't answer it, okay? Yet you seem either unable or are blatantly refusing to silence, by silence to the address, the real issue in this matter. The real issue is authority. So I want their authority. Where is that authority? I refuse nothing and I contest all claims. I wish to review your letter of October 15, 1996, one more time. In paragraph 2 of the page 1, you stated, improve your property. I had always thought it was my property. In the next sentence, you state, refusing to give your consent. Okay, consent implies voluntary. Refusing implies mandatory. Which is it? I want to know. Again, in that same sentence, you stated, work being done on your property. The next paragraph, number 3, you stated required that you get a building permit before improving your property. Whose property is it? Licensing and permits are to allow a trespasser permission upon another's property. Now that's actually the term that came from the court case. How can I be an automatic trespasser upon my own property? To be licensed, I must either have a certificate of convenience or be employed to work on the property. Neither of these conditions exist to my knowledge. Again, in paragraph 1 of page 2, you indicated that the property is mine, yet I can be assessed, which is a tax for the privilege of doing work on my own property. Is this a revenue measure or a police power? The phrases must allow, refuse to consent, indicate some level of voluntary procedure. Inspection warrant indicates there must be proof I fit in a proper category for a warrant to be issued. Lawful inspection has never been proven because there is no evidence of a bona fide relationship, making it lawful. Now you notice, I didn't say legal, I said lawful. Lawful is very important. You are either legal or you're lawful. Lawful has only 4 laws. Legal has so many that nobody can ever read them. And it becomes very confusing because in one place they'll say, well, you can do this, but over here they'll say, well, you can't. And it's like, okay, I'm confused. Where are we? Okay. So I want to get this real clear. The city has a right to attack the private citizen anytime, any way it wants, without establishing authority to do so, and with total disregard for my rights, without ample and adequate notice, showing that all evidence which requires me to comply, violating my right to due process under the 6th Amendment of the United States of America Constitution and Article 1, Section 7 of the California Constitution. So I use the Constitution. I've got to the place where I don't really try to use the Constitution because none of it applies to you. You are not a party to the Constitution. That's another long story. Anyway, but it still helped to use this. Under all circumstances, there must be a statute to support the code, an implementing regulation identifying the intent of the legislature, and notice. I would like to know what that statute is, where's the implementing regulation identifying me as subject to the code, and when I was noticed. Okay? Or, in the alternative, we always want to give them an alternative. When did I waive my property rights? Or, do I have property rights? Is this an in rem procedure? In rem means a thing in law. And if they are after my property, then they're going after my property, in rem. I claim I have waived none of my rights under any circumstances at any time. Please provide proof of this waiver. Without proof, the city has no standing to bring a cause of action against me or to obtain a warrant. This is not a refusal, only contesting the authority which is not obvious to me. I'm okay if you can prove to me that I'm under that code. If I'm not, then you need to go away. I have no problem with that. Proper police powers, and this is one of the things that, because in this whole setup, I have things on police powers and administrative law, and it's great information. Proper police powers upon the citizens are for criminal or nuisance under damage conditions. Oh, so if I create a crime, or I do a nuisance, okay, which creates damage, actual damage. If it doesn't create damage, they've got no authority. Then the proper police powers cannot affect you. And it's in everything that they use the code. If they're using the code, that means they have to have proof. And if they don't have proof, then they lose. Please advise what criminal activity I am being charged, or if I have created a nuisance, why you must go to court to acquire a warrant, since nuisances can be abated summarily providing an opportunity for a post-deprivation hearing. According to your letter, there is no hearing and no abatement. Something's amiss here. Is this government by injunction? Okay, and they do not like that term. If you say, is this government by injunction, they want to stay away, big time.
Because that implies lawsuits, or what does the injunction imply for them? Why are they afraid of injunction?
Well, an injunction means that they are taking authority they don't have, and they're going to go ahead and do it, and I get to that shortly, okay? Let me explain my understanding of the government of America. The people collectively, state, sovereign, created an agent, state government, inferior sovereign, to protect all their rights by leasing its commonly held lands for extraordinary use by the privileged class under certain activities which this agent was to rule and regulate. So what are we talking about? You have the government for the people. The people are the actual government, and we have agents that are supposed to protect us. But any land that the United States of America purchased and the land was ceded to the United States, you have to have both of those, okay? Then that becomes their land. So like Yosemite is one of those places, and I know most people understand what Yosemite is, okay? That is federal land. And federal land is for public, you can go on to that because it's for the public, okay? But it is ruled by the federal government. And the federal government is the property management for the United States of America. And that's another really long story, but we won't go there. All right. So when and how did this agent get the authority to apply these same rules and regulations upon the principal? So who's the principal? You are the principal. They are an agent who is supposed to protect your rights. When was the Constitution of this state changed to reflect that the state created the people? So who created the state? The people did. So the people are the government. The state is an agent that is supposed to protect the citizens. Okay, so where was I? When did the creator become subject to the creation? Because that's, if we created them, then when did we become subject to them in a way in which they tax us and they put us in jail and all of that, and we haven't committed an actual crime? Now, if you commit a crime, you deserve to go there. But if you didn't create a crime, and a crime is you damage somebody's property or themselves, and okay, then they have the right to do that. But if you haven't done that, I'm sorry, they have no authority. All right. All laws are local in nature, which constitutes a republican form of government, guaranteed by the Constitution of America, as well as the state, unless these have been abolished. So let me know when they were abolished. I'm open to that, okay? But at this point, they're not. Unless our constitutional government has been converted to a communistic country where the government is the dictator. This is where you talk about government by injunction. They are a dictator. Okay? And all people are subject, which I believe the purpose of the revolution forming the country and why we fought Hitler in World War II was to avoid. I, as one of the public, being protected by the public servant, City of Mendota, am subject to the nuisance, trespass, and tort laws. Those are your laws. There's only one other one, and that's a violation of a contract. So you have only 4 laws. Requiring due care, which is my duty to my fellow man. I claim I am exercising due care with all my activities so as not to violate the rights of my neighbor. Any action taken by the City of Mendota without just cause properly noticed upon me could constitute a breach of public trust. And that is another term they do not like, to a breach of public trust. A proper police powers are recognized as valid, but strict liability in my case is not, as it is an abuse of power without evidence of a bona fide relationship. Yet you seem to think the only way that I can contest this matter is to have an attorney, which indicates I'm an adverse holder of my property. Please provide evidence where my property has been converted for public use under a public utility or public service. All presumptions are rebuttable under law. The attorney will be requested to ask these same questions. Why do I have to pay an attorney to get an answer regarding your authority to proceed? You also stated that the police powers are broad and far-reaching. Does this include being unreasonable and overbroad in its application? Legislatively, could this matter possibly be unnecessary and unwarranted interference with individual liberty? I want to know the classification or activity which brings me personally under the code. Within the code, there is an exclusion clause stating, if any portion of this code is held unconstitutional, such decision shall not affect the validity of any other portion of this code. Really? Isn't that interesting? I acknowledge the constitutionality of the code cited. I just claim that it is unconstitutional as applied in this matter. If you believe you are right, all you need to do is provide the information requested above and in the copy of my previous letters attached for your convenience without providing any legal advice. You are requested to provide any and all statutes and authority which is the city's duty to its citizens and to its agents, your duty, and I will be most happy to comply. I really only need to know the authority and who they apply to. Without the authority, this is a ruse, threat, and coercion. I will not submit to arbitrary involuntary servitude as cited in the Constitution of the State of California, Article 1, Section 6. Quote, slavery is prohibited, involuntary servitude is prohibited except to punish crime. So they have to prove there was a crime, or they have to prove that they have that authority. My questions are valid, and I am not required by any law to hire an attorney to redress grievances of my government unless the First Amendment of the United States of America Constitution or Article 1, Section 3 of the California Constitution has been abolished. I would also request a copy of your bond as an agent for the city of Mendota. I want to be sure you are bonded in case there is a misapplication of the law in my case. I would hate to think that the city could become liable for a trespass by any misapplication of the law. The city's immunity goes away when operating outside governmental interests. I would like to resolve this matter in a timely manner, so thank you for your consideration and prompt attention to this matter. Since you did not specify a response time in your last letter, I am not sure of the appropriate timing. So I will respond immediately. You will have 10 days to provide proof of authority, or you will be deemed in default without just cause to proceed. And I put respectfully the citizen's name, and then the copy went to the city council, planning department, building inspector, city of, I put the Mendota, okay. Then it went to Fresno County Boards of Supervisor, Barbara Boxer, Diane Feinstein, George Radonovich, Jim Costa, Cruz Bustamante. And then the sheriff, Steve Margarian, and presiding judge, Fresno County. So that is, and I wrote that letter, and today I will tell you, I do not remember writing that letter. It was so, it addressed every issue that could be set out. Just before my accident, I was working with a gentleman, and I bought him a computer, but he had a couple of court cases, and so I did paperwork for his court cases. Well, then I had the accident. He took what was in that and this Mendota stuff, and he figured out how to get them to leave him alone. He had a brand new truck, no plates, no license. If you don't have plates, you don't have to have license. And he did a lot of really, really good things. And he probably did that maybe 7 to 8 years. And then he did something not really smart, and he got involved with somebody and followed what they wanted to do, and it got him put in jail. And how they got him to go to jail, because he didn't have a driver's license and he didn't have plates on his car, they came to him and told him, you will get plates on your car, get a driver's license, or we'll put your wife in jail. And he was not going to let his wife go to jail. So he went down, got plates, got a license, and then they picked him up, put him in jail, and he was in jail for, I know, at least 1.5 years.
And that was because once he contracted with the state, now they have jurisdiction over him?
You got it. Okay? So, but he had it, he did have a great, and what he did, he was a roofer. And a lot of his roofing was for the military. And they told him, as long as you do not have a driver's license, you can drive your truck with no plate on it. But if there's a truck in the place and you want to move it, if you don't have a license, do not get in that truck. So it's very specific. The license is because you have registered your vehicle. And I mean, he had brand new trucks, and he never, ever had any problem. Now, probably the first 6 to 7 months, they would stop him a lot. But he had his paperwork. He'd give it to, he never said anything. He just gave his paperwork to the officer. The officer would go back to his car, sit down. He would call dispatch, and they got to the place where they told him, don't ever stop him again. Just don't leave him alone. And he would do 90 miles down the road, no problem, no plates.
Because they were afraid of what?
Because his paperwork made it obvious that he was not part of their code section.
Got it. No license plate, so no license, and then now they have no jurisdiction?
Right. That's it. Okay.
Nice.
Now, of course, you will have situations if you have plates and no license, which I have, okay, if they stop you. Well, the last time I was in court was 2009, and after that, they didn't want to see me anymore.
For traffic infractions.
But I do have plates in my car, and I'm looking to part with them, okay? But for a long time, I didn't have anything that stood out that I thought would work to keep them away from me. But I found recently some things that I think will work. And of course, I have to try it. I'm not going to say, oh, I'm doing this and it, No, I only do things after I've proven that it works. If it doesn't work for me, then for me, I stop doing it, okay?
Very nice.
And so, like right now, my car has South Dakota plates on it,
Nice.
okay? So
what happened with the Mendota letter? That was a very powerful letter. Maybe like some divine inspiration came from you to write.
Oh, it did.
So that was a very powerful letter, and hopefully we can get a copy of it. But what happened? So the building inspector said you got to have a permit. You see this client hired you, and you sent a letter back. Now it's their turn to respond. How did they respond?
Well, the city council, okay, met. They fired the business manager. They fired the city attorney, and they wanted to fire the building inspector, but he went on 4 months leave of absence, and when he returned, nobody wanted his job. And the gentleman that this was done for, when this building inspector would see him, he would cross the street. He didn't want to be on the same side of the street that this person was on.
So they fired some people and never replied to that letter again.
No, no. They left him alone. He has never had any problem at all. Okay, and so this was so good. Now, up here I have something called administrative law. Okay, and this comes from Bancroft Whitney Company. Okay, it says